I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Sewer Commissioners for October 8th. And roll call, please.
Malcolm White.
Sandy Slavin.
And Jim Gibberti. Okay, we do have a quorum. And do we have minutes of a previous meeting?
Yes, I have reviewed the minutes of September 17th and find them in order, and I make a motion to approve as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 300. Sewer business. From the looks of it, GHD's taken over the plant. GHD got a contract amendment to the plant evaluation for $25,000.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's to amend the 148 contract that we have for the evaluation. And this is specific to preparing and filing the SRF funding application and paperwork that's needed. It's quite extensive, quite lengthy, and we need to get it done so we can complete the application.
Any questions?
I'm sorry, what are we looking at? I got lost in my paperwork.
We're looking at the amendment of the contract. Looks like this. It says amendment number 1, and that attaches to the, if you look behind it, it's the original contract we signed, and then it's got the actual 128. That's the work, a purchase order for it. And we're asking to amend that contract to include the specific task in preparing and filing the SRF fund loan application for the construction of the denitrification filters and the odor control that we're placing an article for at town meeting.
All right, I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 300. And now we have a contract for design of the night filters and odor control for $550,000. This is the one that we had reserved $1 million for,
Yes.
and it's coming in at $550,000.
Yes, this is the physical design. The SRF funding, part of that application is the design of what we're planning on doing. The SRF funding DEP people have been really good to us, and they gave us an extension to complete this application specific to the design of the denitrification filters and the design of the odor issues with the basins. And so they have to fast track this, sorry to say, and we need this contract to get them rolling.
And
So
just for clarification, and so everybody's aware, we asked originally for a $10 million
Yes.
borrowing. And of that 10 million, 1 million was for engineering. That particular 1 million is now 550,
So it says
just so we're on the same page.
pre-equalization basin for $262,000, denitrification filter for $266,000, and meetings for 20, totaling $550,000. I make a motion, we approve.
Excuse, Sandy, 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
Quick thing to add, I won't belabor the point.
Just introduce yourself, Russ.
Sure.
We've got it on tape.
My name is Russ Kleekamp, engineer with GHD. Just one thing to add with this contract, because it is a larger dollar value, most of our, or all of our contracts today have been a lump sum contract. So basically, we do the scope of work, and we get paid the agreed upon sum of money. Because this is a larger contract with design work, we set it up as a not to exceed contract, because in some cases, if our recommendation for, say, odor control doesn't require as much design as we think it may need, we're not going to bill you for that. Every invoice will be accompanied by an hourly breakdown, and almost similar to how SRF does it. You know, it's $550,000 not to exceed. So it could come in underneath that if we if we keep it ahead of budget.
So would you like me to remake my motion? To say the word not to exceed 550,000?
Yes, please. Sounds
Make a
good.
motion, we approve this contract not to exceed 550,000 for engineering for equalization basin and denitrification filters. Filter.
I have
I'll second that.
a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0-0. Now we have a little cutie here, a flow memorandum from our lovely friends out there, GHD. And Russ, do you want to comment on that for us, since you put it together?
Sure. So what we had submitted to the WPCF was the draft memorandum for the current capacity at the water pollution control facility. So I'll actually jump right to our recommendation, and then I'll explain how we got to that point. So the recommendation is to not add any additional flow, committed or not, until the new equalization basins are complete. And the reason for that is as follows. So it's been documented for several years back that the treatment facility has had to do what we're calling non-permitted discharges. That's when the existing equalization lagoons reach capacity, and then the WPCF is forced to pump raw wastewater to an unlined depression on the treatment plant grounds. So it's a non-permitted discharge. It is in violation of the existing permit, and if multiple violations happen, eventually that's the sort of thing that leads to a consent order and potentially DEP mandating a fix. However, the town's been or WPCF has been very proactive with seeking this, and there's another occurrence at the plant, and Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, that requires the diversions, is when the flows are too high, the settling does not happen properly at the plant. So the solids pass right through the clarifiers and into the denitrification filters. So what happens is the denitrification filters get clogged, they have to be taken offline, and we still have this remaining flow coming through the plant. So what do we have to do with that? We have to either put that into the equalization, the existing equalization basins if they're empty, or it has to be discharged to the same place where the diversions have happened. So because we know this, it's been documented, DEP is aware of it. For the town to continue to add flow, our concern is that it might be viewed as I don't want to say reckless, but you know, a very kind of, I guess reckless might be the word, but it's.
Can hear you better?
Sure.
Thank you.
So because it's a known condition, and if the town continues to do it without making any sort of accommodations for this flow, the courtesy from DEP might not be there in the future. So we really can't recommend, because it's a known condition, the plant is already overflowing, and I believe this was mentioned way back, we did that report for Woodland Cove where we said that the pipes and the infrastructure is fine, but when you get to the plant, we have this current condition. So again, this is a recommendation. You know, we can't make policy for the town,
Right.
but because it's an existing condition and you keep doing it, we're recommending not to add any flow. However, once the equalization basins are built and completed, which we're saying in calendar year 2021, it could be potentially as soon as April or May, that is going to put something there, put a solution there that's going to help the town better manage these higher I&I flows. If we think back to those 3 nor'easters in January of 2018, we looked at the flows of the plant. We calculated that had the WPCF had an additional 1.3 million gallons of equalization, they could have contained the flows within a lagoon or a basin. So our design is for 2.7 million gallons. So we have basically well exceeded, make it as robust as possible to provide the town the best protection possible for these events. So moving forward in the future, now we can only design for certain size storms. We can't say that things will never be exceeded again, but it's going to take a significant rain event for those to get, for the new basins to get exceeded. But then it's a little bit of a different of a program with DEP, because that rain event is likely going to be super substantial. The town can very well say, we had an engineer study done, we designed these basins as big as we could, and then, you know, you've done everything that you can to handle it. And quite frankly, you get that much rain, every plant's going to have issues. It's just going to happen all over. So that's why we're recommending to not add any flow until the equalization basins are complete. Furthermore, we'd still recommend from an engineering perspective that we don't want to add more flow until the denitrification filters are added to this, because right now the plant is operating outside of compliance. The regulations require the plant to have a redundant series of filters, which we do not have now.
But
So
that's 2 years off.
it's potentially 2 years off. So what are,
We have a stopgap. We have a stopgap with the equalization basins.
we do?
Okay.
So it would take a serious rain event. You know, engineers are conservative by nature, so we always tend to recommend, you know, what's from an engineering perspective, what the safest approach would be. But we also acknowledge that the town has plans to grow. There's commitments, there's flow, that there's, you know, the show must go on. So to reevaluate the flows after the basins are constructed, which we can do very simply, we wouldn't charge for it. We'll take it a second look, and we'll just really make sure that we feel comfortable. So at least until the new basins are completed, we would not recommend tying in any flow, because that's going to exacerbate the existing conditions of having to do these non-permitted discharges. And they're non-permitted. We can't just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. It's not in the town's best interest.
I'd make one small clarification. The diversions have always been secondary process that's either came out of the denite filters. Never was there any raw sewer put on the ground.
No, it was always partially treated.
Always. In all the diversions we had, 218, 215, 219 was partially treated flow that come out of the secondary, never raw. That's very important and critical to understand. Raw discharge is a whole different world.
Yes.
Just want to be clear
Now,
about that.
by looking at this, you're saying we have 215,000 gallons committed but not implemented yet.
Correct.
Excuse me, look, I'm going to interject right here, add to that. Does this include Makepeace?
It does not include Makepeace. So maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the flows and the commitments.
Because that pushes it this way.
What Makepeace?
The one that's in town? The BDOD? We committed to them.
And why isn't it on the list of future?
I just asked the question.
Oh,
So these were the written solid commitments that we knew of.
Yep.
I'm well aware of the discussions with Makepeace. I've seen numbers as high as 500,000 gallons per day, but we haven't seen a furnished committed document. Again, this is draft, and if we included that 500,000, it's going to well exceed. But there's other areas as well.
But be clear that we have signed a document
That's it, that's the point.
that assures them of that flow at any time. Matter of fact, in the 207 document written by CDM to the town stated, if you have excess of capacity, make sure you realize that that's committed to Makepeace and the BDOT. Now, Makepeace has been gracious and hasn't really banged us for anything. They've really cooperated with us. They've done a great job, and I respect it, and nothing but accolades and praise for the way they've been doing business. But that monkey is in the room, and if we keep dismissing it and not recognizing it, I think it's a disservice.
so
Just
this
keep it in the back
committed
there.
flow needs to be increased by 500,000
Approximately, when I talk to Makepeace,
gallons a day?
when I talk to Makepeace, yes, you are. Their BDOT, the size of it, and we talked to them, when we did the need analysis for the expansion of the plant and the canal discharge, we talked to them, and they were very gracious, and they said, we'll calculate for you, and they said 500,000 gallons per day if they build out the BDOT. Now, obviously, it isn't built out, and there's some economic implications and economic reasons why it isn't built out, but at any time, if they choose to move forward, the document says that they get capacity.
This commitment here for 215,000, it puts it as 89%. 89. What will the 500,000 do?
We couldn't,
You would exceed.
begin to
we couldn't,
accommodate-
no, we could not.
The plant couldn't
Could not.
accommodate it.
No, we could not.
We'd have to expand the plant.
Even with a ground discharge, we couldn't accommodate it,
No.
because the plant can only do X
I don't
amount.
get that. In that I'm looking at what we're allowed to discharge per day.
So I got to be frank, I've had this discussion,
So
Why'd we ever,
that's 1/3 of our,
we agreed to it. Now, and the document's been documented and signed and voted on at town meeting. It's there.
at what year?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember.
Pre
Jimmy Potter missed.
Free this.
Yeah,
so the selectmen approved with town meeting handling 500,000 gallons per day
yes, ma'am.
if that got built out, knowing our plant had no capacity to handle that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Welcome to Wareham.
Thank you,
But Meg, I
BOS.
got, in defense of Makepeace, and I've got to say this because I have a great relationship, because they haven't forced any issues, but it's just, I brought this up many times, and I want everybody aware that it exists. It's in black and white, it's committed, it's signed, and the town's committed. That's just a reality. If they ever hold us to it, I can't say, and that's not my place to say. It's just that we need to acknowledge it because it's there. And if we do expand the plant, and we go out to the canal, we got to consider their gallons.
So the other areas too, in the previously completed CWMP, the 2001, there were several areas of expansion. And I believe those were somewhere between 150 and 200,000 gallons per day for those areas. Now with the Makepeace flow, I understand that there's a commitment for this 500, but is that for what year? Is that for 20 years? And that's really why we've been pushing and recommending to get this comprehensive wastewater management plan done, because that will project, if Makepeace is saying 500,000 over 20 years, it changes the table. If we were to add 500,000 to this graph, this whole memo would have to be revised and just say your plant's over capacity.
It's economic development with
No, I
Makepeace.
understand.
So it's,
Well, from conversations I've had thus far, at least with Guy, I don't know that there's a time frame attached to
There's
this.
none attached to it that I'm aware of. I've read it thoroughly.
With no time frame attached,
No time frame.
we could look at that gallonage to come in tomorrow or 30 years from now.
well, I would strongly suggest
And
understood.
So, I mean, my guess would be that you take a reasonable projection,
Cent of it.
guess the number, and program that in, but I think just on what we're doing right here, that something needs to be accounted for them.
Well,
Maybe not the full 500, I don't think the full 500, but I think for today's working numbers is what we're dealing with,
right.
that we need to account for 50,000?
Well, we
I don't know.
Which
They
strongly
haven't
Number.
completed Rosebrook yet. Anytime they could complete it. There's still another medical building that they have planned for. That hasn't even been built yet. Now, if they do or not, I don't know, and they may never will. They may never build it, but that is already planned. And they can just build it at any time that they believe they need it. So we have to accommodate those gallons.
So did we commit to gallons for that?
We committed 60,000 gallons for the entire Rosebrook. And that's part of it, yes, it's committed.
But it's
So it's
not
already
on the
committed,
list.
it's already in here.
Does
Where?
Makepeace?
we didn't, if we had that, it wasn't listed here, that's
Yeah,
60,000.
Makepeace was 60,000, they've done most of it, but the next medical building hasn't been done?
Okay, so there is a building committed of the 60,000,
That is not done.
we have to, some of it's been done, of the
I'm saying
60,000.
the one building has not been done, and what we'll have to do is see the flows for the existing one and then calculate those flows and get a good
So the
estimate.
60,000 could have been for two medical buildings, of which only one has been completed.
Correct.
I think it would definitely warrant another meeting with Makepeace as a potential customer that's using up a third of a third to a quarter of the treatment plant's capacity in the future, to say, rather than guessing, what are your, do you have, 500,000 gallons, they may or may not, I haven't worked with them, but work with them to develop an implementation on that. Obviously, they're not going to need it tomorrow, we know
Right.
that, but with the commitment made, your statement's correct. We have to reserve that, which we physically just couldn't even do under existing conditions.
Correct.
So it would probably be well warranted to sit down with Makepeace if they have engineers they're working with for wastewater planning. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
They do.
And to say, we're at crunch time at the treatment facility, and we have to start making plans, not just for the immediate equalization bays and the denitrification filters, but what's our first step for expansion? Because if you truly need 500,000,
We've got to be looking on the short term, 10 years out.
and
Well, Jim, they did. When we went to them, when we talked about what we're going to do with the canal, we went to them and said, okay, we're going to go to the canal, we got potential of 12 million, 3 million, whatever. What do you need? And they said 500,000. And that was based upon us getting to the canal.
Right, but no, what I was just saying, my intent in my comment there was that we need to be looking at least 10 years out on capacities and plant capability, on what has to be expanded in the plant in order to
And sewer
do that
expansions,
within that short term.
treatment plant expansions do not happen quickly. I can tell you that much.
Well, that's why I
It's-
say we're gonna look at least 10 years.
It's
So I don't know how long a plant expansion would take, but
potentially, I'd likely use the same approach as SRF funding. It's a significant eight-digit construction sum, probably not starting with a one.
And then you
Plan
got-
for it, design it, that's gonna take a year to 2 years. Bid it, construction, another two, I mean, your best-case scenario, probably 4 years if we started right now to get the expanded plant built. And it's, again, you have to present the numbers to the town, there's a process behind this.
so 10 years is reasonable to consider.
For an expansion, correct, yes, it is. I mean, between 5 and 10 years for an expansion, but it's, this very large, I don't even want to say it. I know that whatever this number is, it's going to be big. And then, how does that get received by the town and how does that get broken out
Well,
and
it's
funded?
easy, it's gonna get shut down right away. We know how it's gonna be received, I mean, but the whole point, though, is we need to at least be addressing it
Right.
on a forward basis, even if we have to come in up with a number that scares everybody. The number's not gonna go down necessarily.
Before we do that, I mean, we know under, the way this memo is written is probably a best-case scenario with the 214, seeing how, if it's not including the 60,000 and this other chunk of flow from Makepeace. And even under the best case, we're recommending not to add
I understand.
until these equalization basins are built. So maybe between today and whenever these new equalization basins are completed, we try to iron out with Makepeace what the flow requirements are, try to get a CWMP completed, and then we can really much more accurately plan and project, because this isn't the type of thing we want to make guesses on, especially throwing numbers out there that may or may not be accurate. It's not for a project, not for this sort of thing.
On your page 4, it's not 240 Oak Street, it's 24. Oak
Understood.
Street's not that wide, not that long. But, so I thought I read in here,
24.0,
24.0, yes, because it's a new version of 24.
oh, okay. This committed flows of 215,000 added to what we do right now, if it was all implemented, we would be doing 89%,
Close to it. That,
which means anything over 80 has to be documented,
It-
right?
So when you have an actual flow over 80% for a calendar year from January through December, so obviously we don't have this year, so last year's, it was 1.18 or 1.19,
So we're.
1.18.
If all of this was to be implemented, it would not look good.
It would push you above the 80%, and that's when DEP would say, okay, what are you going to do for expansion? What's your plan? And
You say we have the equalization basin to help, but that doesn't help.
They're gonna look for-
We're over 80%, and even the equalization basin will not counter that.
correct, the equalization basin does not add capacity to the plant. That plan that has to be submitted, 80%, has to outline what your plans are for expansion, or are you gonna cap it at, maybe you're done at 80, or at your true 100%, which we know for Wareham, there's gonna be additional need for flow. But that plan could very well be the comprehensive wastewater management plan that's completed.
Right.
Now, I would probably say that for this calendar year, you may not exceed that 80% just with the drought conditions and things like that, but it shouldn't be looked at as, oh, we gained flow. Because once the groundwater table builds back up and rains come back again, we're potentially gonna exceed that for the following calendar year.
right?
So, moral of the story is, we know we have the commitments, we know we're gonna exceed the 80%, so it probably shouldn't be waited on until we actually get over 80%
Like,
for the flows.
And in this document, the 214, I&I is not accounted for.
It's not accounted for in those flows.
that was gonna be my next question.
Because that's an unknown. And if we get a lot of rain, the I&I will eat up that portion of that 20% that we're talking about, or 20 of that, that 89, the 11%. So that's,
So the INI is included, though, like when we say the average flow for the calendar year, that 1.18, that does include the INI, that's actual flows, and we know we actually got it.
They
Hope-
had to say we did it, yeah.
Hopefully with new construction, new things like that, use of grinder pumps, we can minimize the INI, but again, it's gonna be there. Any sort of gravity system you connect, it will eventually leak over time. I mean, correct, they do build them much better and tighter nowadays, but they still fall prone to INI, and it's mostly the connections into it. It's not so much, you don't see so much the cracks and the joints with roots and things like that so much more. It's more the inflow coming in from illegal connections and manhole seepage and things like that.
Guy, what improvement are we gonna get with this lining the Smith Street pipes?
Stability, the entire Smith is, so the problem with C Street and Smith is leaking. We have leaks in the pipe, and it's ductile iron, and we have seepage in the manholes. So we're gonna seal that up.
Yes.
Also, because it's ductile and it's constantly corroding, that it can only get worse. So we can stop a leak with a grout or whatever, but the concept is to line the entire section and gain another 50 years of
So
useful
here's
use.
an attempt to try to reduce the good water coming in by doing, Smith Street is one of the worst ones, right?
Smith Street, yes.
One of the many worst
Pinehurst,
ones.
generally speaking, is our worst contributor to I&I. Smith Street is just because it runs through the marsh.
Yep.
We need to protect the marsh, and it's a known, so we're gonna seal that right up. But that's not gonna, keep in mind that that's gonna be that one leg. Groundwater will seek another area, because the whole area, Swiss Beach, it's all on water. And the rest of Swiss Beach is asbestos, clay, and some ductile, and it all leaks. So it's a complicated mess out there. Originally, we floated $20 million to do all grinder pumps in entire area of Swiss Beach, entire. Because grinder pumps, there is no I&I, there is no sump pumps, there's nothing. And that would be a solution, but to sink that kind of money into Swiss Beach and not at any other town, it became a concept of what's fair. But I&I is I&I. If we got rid of all of it in Swiss Beach, but anyways, that's the story of Swiss
Now,
Beach.
with this recommendation, what does the board tell the redevelopment authority, the town planner, the town administrator, the board of selectmen? No more.
Take a nap for a while. Take a nap for a while.
Something has to be done from us to that entities to say to the town, no new hookups. Based on this recommendation.
Yes,
Well, Jimmy,
Yep,
can
go
you
ahead.
discuss it with town council? And we should probably implement a moratorium,
oh, absolutely. We've got to do something.
somewhat based on the duration of the project
Yeah.
for the new basins.
And you really have to define commitment and non-commitment, because, I mean, there's committed products, and we're gonna say, even that we committed to, we're not going to sewer. So I would definitely talk to council, because we've given them a commitment. Now, we have a policy, and I'll talk about it later, but when I talked to the people at Woodland Cove, I said, we have a new policy. If you don't use it within a year, then you have to reapply. That's our policy. I don't know if that policy was decided to be retro to all existing projects. That wasn't defined. I know going forward. So my only concern would be is that we've made commitments. If we can take those commitments back, that's fine, but I think we should make sure we can take back
That should be
commitments.
part of the
we already
discussion,
gave- We
Jim.
already gave.
Right?
Well, Woodland Cove decreased their
They did.
project. Does this reflection, does this number, it doesn't reflect the decrease? The 32,000 gallons a day?
They I don't know if they did. Now, I'm looking at Phase 1. It's only 2 buildings and the
Yeah.
rec building. Phase 2 is going to be 2 more buildings. Phase 3 is going to be another building, so that's 5 buildings. I don't see any decrease.
I thought one was, never mind, I thought it had
I-
been decreased to 4, but
I could be wrong, but I know that there's 4
In the mi-
phases, and I'll look at it when I
in
get
the
there.
meantime,
but-
we've committed to 32,000 for that whole project.
Yes. And again, we committed to where the dental place is and a couple other retail and restaurants are going, and we committed 12,000 gallons per day. They're not going to use that. There's no way. As I'm looking at the new, because when they designed that, they said, okay, we're going to get these large sit-down restaurants, et cetera, big retail stores. The reality is they've got a dental place, they've got a small coffee shop coming in, and a potential
Starbucks,
restaurant.
yeah.
So that's it. So that flow that they asked for the 12,000 gallons per day, they're lucky if they do maybe 6,000 gallons a day. So
We don't know what the third building's going to be.
there's a negotiation going on right now, and we have a good idea. However, we know it's going to be less. But we do that with because we make them design to the worst case. And then as time progresses, it may not be exactly what they said they were. So that frees up some flow. But the bottom line is the meters tell the story. It's when they look at the year average flow, that's the story. It isn't what they said they're gonna do, what they're not gonna do, it's what the meters say year to year. That's what we're going by.
And, you know, the real, I would say the premise behind this evaluation and recommendation of not adding flow is managing risk. You know, what's the risk of these non-permitted discharges still happening? I know even like right now under the conditions, there was almost a case, the guy, correct me if I'm wrong, where we potentially almost had to do one of the non-permitted discharges due to the filters clogging up, correct?
We've done some in the last few weeks, only because we have a phosphorus problem. Phosphorus, by trying to get rid of, we've got numbers come between 17.5 and 30 and 60 milligrams per liter. What is normal is 4 to 6. So someone in this community has given us a whole lot of phosphorus. And now we try to get rid of the phosphorus, and we're adding tons of aluminum to try to precipitate it out. That disrupts the entire process. It just doesn't work, so there's no settling. When there's no settling and the clarifiers are undersized to begin with, we can't settle, so it just goes over the wares to the filters and takes them out.
That's something new, Jack?
The phosphorus is.
So what kind of?
What new business came?
Activities or industrial?
Well, so we're looking. We had some ideas, we went and looked at them, and we can't figure it out. What we're doing is we got the headworks. Now we're doing the pump stations, and we're gonna work back till we get to a manhole and try to figure out what's
Try and
going on.
isolate, yeah.
We have to, because no one's gonna say, it's me. It's just not gonna happen. So we have to figure out, somebody's doing something. It could be an existing building that tried a new product, or they have a new process, or they're doing something different. We have no concept.
Yeah.
And we have to find it, because right now it's giving us a whole lot of trouble. Our permit ends October 31st, which means I don't have to chase phosphorus. So it makes my life a little easier, because I don't have to add all the chemicals. Right now, I'm in permit. Between April and October 31st, I have to meet 0.2 of phosphorus. That's all there is to it. When you got 30 and 60 and 20 coming in, it's a very difficult thing to get down to 0.2. And so that's disrupted. So we have been. So the basin, or the new construction, if we have that issue, we could handle it. Right now, I'm carrying 2 full basins. I'm talking full. I'm talking chock full, because I've been diverting like crazy. And we had one that went all over. We couldn't put in the basin because we would have had a problem going out to overfilling the raw basins, and we can't go there. Just simply can't go there. So it's been a fight.
You raised a good point that I forgot to mention earlier, that the overall plant evaluation that we're doing, we're looking at all the processes through the treatment plant. There may be other things that also support not adding flow. For example, the loads. You know, we have a phosphorus issue going. We haven't completed that portion of the plant evaluation yet, so we already know just the waste, the influent flow coming in is enough to recommend we don't add additional flow. There are other factors at the plant that may also support that recommendation. We just haven't completed that work yet. We expect to have it completed over the next month or so, or 6 weeks, but obviously the phosphorus issue will be included in that. Again, these new basins are going to help that, and what I was saying earlier, it's all about managing this risk of these non-permitted discharges. Once we get the basins installed, the town's risk of a non-permitted discharges drops. I couldn't tell you a percent, I couldn't tell you a number, but it drops to the point where it might be manageable to start incrementally adding in flows on a case-by-case basis. Your risk drops even further once you get the additional denitrification filters in. And then that will allow the plant itself to resume that 2 MGD treatment capabilities. And you can discharge 2, 3, 5, 10 million gallons over a given day. It's your 30-day average that has to be the 1.56. So if you get these higher flows, you can discharge more than 1.56 in a given day. That's fine. It's just your 30-day flow has to be beneath that. So our recommendation is really risk-based. You have a very high risk now for the non-permitted. We know it. It's happening. It happened a few weeks ago. So we just can't say, I don't think any consultant would say with a straight face, keep adding flow. It's all is good. It's not. New basins, risk goes down. Denite filters, risk gets even lower. But then, you know, it sounds like there's going to be a discussion for potential plant expansion at that point. I mean, I would really encourage communication with Makepeace, selectmen, just open communication, planning department to understand this issue. And the numbers, there's not a lot of engineering opinion in this. The numbers are what they are. It's recorded flow and commitments. It's about as basic as it gets. So there's not a lot of fluff in this. It's numbers. So maybe if these communications and discussions can happen and get a better idea about what the intentions of Makepeace are, what the intentions of some of these committed flows are and things like that, by the time April, May rolls around, and we do have the new basins installed, this can be revised and we can reevaluate at the time. I don't want to say it's going to be better or worse, but it's definitely a time to reevaluate the flows at that time.
Do you want to put out a letter of a moratorium on hookups, or do you want to wait? We have the recommendation. Chloe's going to tell everybody. No, just, yeah, it's,
Well, I think
and we're live hearing it.
because of the magnitude of the decision, I think you better get the selectmen and town council involved. That's
Yep.
my opinion. I
Yep.
wouldn't go out on a,
That's what I was just thinking. I was just making a
I'm
note
not,
to,
it's not an effort to delay it. I think that's the right way to do it. And I wouldn't waste any time with it.
no, I think that we need to revisit this discussion specifically on a moratorium, or not moratorium, at our next meeting. That'll give me a chance to get to, legal and the
You
selectmen.
have time to make the rounds? You have time to make the rounds?
I'll make time somehow. Makepeace guy, you and I can go see them.
I'll see,
Talk to them.
Makepeace and talk to them, and again, we've done it a few times, but, and they're well aware of our position, and I can assure you, well, I can't assure anything, but it's my gut feeling, and I'm confident they wouldn't do anything that's gonna jeopardize us in our present situation.
Now, should redevelopment be included in this or not?
Sorry?
I said, do you think redevelopment should be included in this discussion?
Oh, they're Littleton Drive. They're
yeah.
going to, right?
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
redevelopment authority is doing Littleton Drive.
Okay, and planning, yeah.
So planning's got to be there because they're looking at Sutter's Glen.
But let's be clear, and let's not lose sight, those projects are a couple of years away. They're not coming on anytime soon. Anytime soon.
But anybody who's going to, someone's
need to get
bid
commitment.
already on Littleton Drive, and no one's told them that, hey,
But even 2 years out, we're looking at, like, you're not getting a commitment.
Right.
Right.
I don't care
Right.
what's going on. We're gonna look at what's going on now and
But
base it
today,
on
yes.
now.
I know, I get that. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that these projects aren't starting tomorrow. They're a ways away.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. They're just,
And it might correct itself in 2 years, we might be in it.
I just want to make sure
Somewhat.
it's not tomorrow.
But again, those basins are a stopgap, correct? I mean,
They don't increase your capacity
you're just
whatsoever.
buying time.
They're a Band-Aid.
That's all there is.
It
It's-
reduces your risk of non-permitted discharges is all it really does. There was one other small recommendation that we figured, regarding the flow by Bourne, we were assuming 100,000 gallons is what Bourne's committing. I've heard everything from 80 to 120,000.
No, it's not, 100 is reasonable.
But I would say,
No, more than that.
if we want to confirm that, let's put a flow meter in and just watch it for a few months. It's relatively short money, and maybe Bourne might be contributing 90, 95. That would at
I
least.
think we have to. I don't think there's any question, only because we don't have any documentation of what they're giving us. We only know what they tell us, and there's no documentation backed up by any type of regulated
It
meter.
would be helpful for Bourne, too, to know what they have
Know what
left,
they're doing.
what their exact numbers.
Because they don't
is.
really
It's-
know. The meters, they've never, ever calibrated them. They don't know if they're real or not.
What's a ballpark number and time frame to do that?
I can do it immediately. It's probably going to cost about, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 grand.
Okay, so we
Because
could
about roughly 1,000 or 2,000 a month, something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
It would be ideal to
Bit
do it
cheap.
in springtime.
I think-
Yeah, the recommendation said spring and summer, so you can compare tourist and non-tourist,
The height, now again,
or
this
non-summer.
spring with the drought conditions, if the groundwater is very, very low, it might only come up to this spring to still an abnormal springtime high, but again, at least it gives us a
If
a
we
better
left,
number.
if we left it in for a little bit, we could get some fluctuations of weather
Yeah,
conditions. A heavy rain gives us an answer, that type of thing.
Because if the recommendation is we put something like that in, it would seem to me with the situation we are in overall, that we do it sooner rather than later.
I think so. We need to have some kind of
Just keep it
concept.
So that we can have an immediate start point and go forward.
And then we can
Our
redo it
year will
again.
be from whenever we put it in for a year from now.
And I'm not aware, you don't want to, with that 100,000, I haven't seen any sort of documents. I'm not saying they don't exist, we weren't
I
made
guess
privy
I'm
to that.
using it, I'm going only from the basis that we've got a $200,000 allocation to Bourne, and they're only using about half of it. Now, half of it could be 90, it could be 110, but it's,
10,000's a lot.
Or it
but my
could be
guess is it's,
150.
but it's someplace in
I
that
don't know.
ballpark. And all I'm saying there is that we've already got that commitment for the rest of it, whatever it is, we still have that commitment to them.
Correct.
So regardless of whether they're using it or not, we're committed to it.
So if we put a moratorium, that speaks to any more flow from Bourne also, because they tie to us. They don't get the right to say, we're gonna continue to tie in, but Wareham can't. So that's, once we say we're done, Bourne's done also.
How does that impact the allocation?
Well, that's why I said we have commitments. We allocated 200,000 gallons to them. Obviously, they're not using it.
Correct.
So the point is, if we're gonna put a moratorium on connections and flow, increased flow and new connections, that applies to Bourne also.
And that's why our recommendation is committed or not, we're not recommending. And again, it's based on risk. Now, you can still add in flow if the town was comfortable with that. I'm not saying to do it, but that's where the decision-making has to happen. There's an elevated risk. And what's the negative of that risk? Well, you get the attention from DEP. They could come in and say, okay, now you have to do it, or things like that, that they're obviously aware of the issue that's going on. And just not having the improvements of the basins completed, I think it would not look good to keep adding in flow. And now, again, that's just a recommendation. It's what level of risk is the town comfortable with managing?
And the DEP is well aware, and they trust us to do the right thing. They've been following us, they've been backing us, and they know we have an issue, so we've got to follow through. We have to, and we are with the basin, but I think any decision we make going forward, has to be as close to the best we can, because we do have issues.
But
And I
we
don't-
have an allocated commitment to Bourne of 100,000.
We have an allocated commitment of 200,000, and whatever they're using.
No, this chart
Yes,
says
correct.
Because we
100,000.
guessed 100,000, because
So they could continue to hook up to use this 100,000.
that's what I'm saying. If we have a problem at the plant, and we're at capacity, then Bourne can't use their 100,000. Just like the commitments we made to other developers in Wareham, they can't use theirs either. It wouldn't be fair to tell developers in Wareham, you can't build, but Bourne, you keep on going. I just don't see the fairness in it. That's just one man's opinion, but we have an issue with overflow. We get a rainstorm, all bets are off. And tell Bourne to keep building, and, oh, by the way, Wareham, who is the greater owner of the entire facility, but you can't do anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think legal counsel can be more specific for us, but it just doesn't seem to be right.
Well, I would agree. I mean, the first step that Commissioner White said is to have a joint meeting with town council, selectmen, because there's a potential here for legal.
Absolutely,
And
I agree.
engineers, we're,
I think I'll start with town council.
Because it's a serious issue. If we, if we're, the diversions are one thing, and nobody wants them, but if we violate the law, there is no forgiveness.
Right.
No forgiveness.
So, I don't know, I think we're fulfilling our obligation to do the best thing for the town.
All right, then I will
Go that route first.
try to meet with as many of these entities and collectively or individually as I can.
Russ, I know your time is valuable,
next
but
meeting.
more than happy to attend any
we
meeting.
might need you.
It's just call.
You're all over the place.
Well, this is,
Every Zoom I've been on lately, you've been there.
Yeah, but
It's-
isn't he
The way you
good on
put it,
Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, the way you stated, I mean, anybody can follow it.
Plus, he's a fisherman, so it's
it's my therapy.
not
It's,
be all bad.
No, of course, I mean, this is the hardest part about the job sometimes, is you always want to keep people happy and give good news, but I'd be doing a great disservice if we weren't telling what the facts were. Again, it's ultimately in the best interest of the town. I understand it's going to create some concern, but let's all work together and figure it out.
Could be worse.
Could always be worse, that's
Yes.
And we're trying to keep it from being worse.
correct.
Okay. Anything else we want to add on that? As it stands right now, this discussion will come back up again at our next meeting. It needs to go back on the
Right, so
agenda.
right now, we'll take it under advisement, and we're
Yep.
gonna do a little investigation, and
And I will,
we may have to vote on something next time.
yep,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I just found a set of minutes to
Fantastic.
vote on.
That's wonderful. I just, my heart.
Well,
Well, it's hard to get good help today, you know?
I know I didn't get it when we were supposed to, but can I bring it up right now before we continue? I have a set of minutes from September 3rd, 2020, September 3rd. I make a motion to accept them as presented for September 3rd.
Was I there?
Yes, you were.
I know I missed one somewhere along recently. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye,
And aye, so that's
You.
3-0. It's September 3rd, you said?
yeah, yes.
Thank you. Okay, generator project.
Generator project's on hold. Talking to town council and some concerns that were brought to our attention. We're going to bid it under 149 opposed to 39M. So we're pulling everything back. GHD is going to redo the documents so we can meet the criteria for 149. And once that's done, we'll go back out.
Excuse me. In English, what's the difference?
So it's a procurement. What 39M, 30B, 39M talks about construction. It talks about sewer systems, et cetera. We felt confident that was a good way to go, 39M, because it was just an extension of the treatment of the sewer system or pump station.
Yep.
Well, 49M speaks specifically to buildings. And a pump station, if we're building brand new, it would come under 39M, but because we're not building a brand new pump station, and we're putting in an extension, if you will, a tower for a generator, there's the interpretation from the Attorney General that it may be best under 149, and to eliminate any type of challenges, we should follow 149, which is a procurement procedure and law that the state of Massachusetts has out there to give us guidelines on these projects.
The easy way to remember it is that the 39M is what they call horizontal construction. If you have a big collection system going out, if you have 20 miles of sewer and one pump station, it's all bid under 39. If you have just a pump station, the 149 is vertical construction. It usually requires a lot of sub-trades, electrician, metal work, things like that. So it allows the sub-trades or the subcontractors to file their individual sub-bids. And then a general contractor has to work with the lowest of the sub-bids to package the whole bid together. So that's how we'll.
And it's, again, when you read the law, because we're building a structure, the interpretation was open, and we originally discussed with our town council, we decided to go 39M. But because there was a challenge, and the Attorney General gets involved, it's easier to go with what the Attorney General says.
What kind of a delay will that?
Well, probably none at all, maybe a couple, 3 weeks to redo the documents and get it back out.
We've already completed
Yeah,
with the 149.
they were
The
doing
biggest
it.
thing with this project is delivery times of generators. Potentially a year out is what we've heard. I mean, I looked at one for my house and it was a year out for a 16 kW. These are 40 kWs. It is what it is.
Okay. So this one, you'll go out to bid, but we probably won't see completion for a year. How about it?
It'll be after the new basins are online.
Yeah, there's the generators, there.
Put it into perspective, unfortunately, yeah.
Okay.
Generators have a new diesel Tier 2 or Tier 4, and so that's the difficulty in getting them out there, which speaks to air pollution.
That makes a substantial difference.
Yeah.
I really,
Air pollution.
I understand the whole thing now.
Now they make them so you can't pollute the air. And we even got challenged because we run these routinely because we need them, and we're told we can't run them because they pollute, which is kind of weird. So we can run them during emergency only, but we test them regularly. And there's that fine line about testing them, so it gets kind of dicey.
Exercise medal?
Any duration, we do briefly, but I can't load them and run them for any great time. But anyways, that's another story.
Okay. Tom Knapp, Sandwich Road.
Mr. Chairman, this was the 40B project on Sandwich Road. I'm going to recommend the board table this.
Yes.
We have too many issues to speak about it, but I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's that plans and the letters enclosed also, but they're looking to do a small compacted.
That's where that little brick building is?
Yes,
On the
up there.
right-hand side, across
Yes.
from the,
EMS. So I'm going to recommend, if you don't mind, that we table this until we get better clarity of what we're doing. That would be my recommendation.
Do you want a motion?
yeah, might as well.
Make a motion, we table the project for 83 Sandwich Road. Do I have to say until
I'll
when?
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
sense. And our drilling proposal.
Kleinfelder
Kleinfelder.
proposal, Mr. Chairman. I had the privilege of meeting with Dennis Doherty, who was one of the well-known top drillers in the industry. And when we started talking about drilling to the Cape Cod Canal, we talked about small drills, 900 feet, which is pretty common in the industry. Dennis was talking about 9,000 to 10,000 feet to drill, which we did.
9 to 10,000.
1,000 feet, which we didn't know was a realistic number. Matter of fact, there's a seminar, October 21st and 22nd, through No Dig, that talks about 10,000-foot drills. And I'm going to participate because I got to see it. But nonetheless, I met with him, we talked about that, and he's saying that he believes that he can drill, and he would not go the highway, and he doesn't think we should do the rail. He wants to go under everything and come up somewhere at Onset Avenue in that area, and then come up again at the Cape Cod Canal. He thinks he can do it in a couple of drills.
Well, it's a
3
shorter
at the
route.
most.
It's a shorter route.
It is. So, so he can say anything he wants to say, but there's got to be some documentation, what we call a tabletop feasibility study. And this is what this proposal is. It's pretty extensive, and it's a $66,000 contract to do all they got to do, talk to all the people they need to talk to, get all the geos they can get, and do an actual tabletop, look at a route. He'll look at the routes that we've got, plus a third that'll take us under. And another thing we talked about that I wasn't aware, going under the rail. We were told multiple times from DOT that going on the rail is the danger of allowing the settling. And he says there's a very specific formula for that. He goes under CRX or CXR rails all the time, and you got to be well below the settling point. It's an engineering design. And he believes strongly that we can go under the railroad tracks, come up in Onset Ave somewhere, under again, and come up at the Mass Maritime Academy. So we've been talking about getting to the canal for some time. We felt that it was cost prohibitive to do the rail because of the restrictions from DOT, the highway restrictions, and I believe in the best interest of Wareham, and knowing that we have crisis and problems with capacity, I thought if this is something that we can do and at least spend the money to see the feasibility of it, which he feels strongly it is very feasible, I think it would be in our best interest to move forward, check out the feasibility. It may give us an option that we didn't even know we had, which would expedite, if you will, which would make it less time to get to the Cape Cod Canal.
And just as an aside, if you're unaware, we've already invested money in trying to do this for grant matching items and exploring it, the testing that had to be done in order to get approval to get to the canal and everything else. Our hang-up right now is being able to go from point A to point B. And with the money that we've invested, the time that we've spent to try to do that, it's in Wareham's best interest in the long run, I think.
Would any other
What?
town contribute to this cost?
Yeah.
Because this outfall is not just Wareham.
Well,
That's debatable, and I'm going to.
that's true, that's debatable.
I'm going to talk, and I apologize because and I don't want to come off. So here's the thing. I am really all for the regionalization. I think it's a great way to go, and I want to see it happen. In this major process, it's my opinion that Wareham got lost. We have a capacity issue. Bourne doesn't have a capacity issue. Marion doesn't have a capacity issue. Plymouth does not have a capacity issue. And Mass Maritime wants to get out of the business. We have a capacity issue. So it's in the best interest of Wareham to get to the canal. And so once we get the tabletop done and we see the cost of getting to the canal, we certainly can invite anybody that has interest to join in because they just pay their share. And that's all calculated. But I don't want to say, let's wait for everybody, because that's been our issue for the past 6, 7 years.
Right.
Now, the 66,000, where will it come from?
I'll take it out of my budget, out of my contractor's budget, and then I would rearrange at Springtown meeting. If I'm short, I will approach the town about moving money from someplace else, whether it's my emergency funds or something like that.
From the contractor's budget?
Yes.
I don't have a contract for this.
Oh, you don't? I left a blank one specific.
I
She's
have
supposed-
blank ones.
And she was supposed to have written on it, not actually filled it out, and said, the outfall feasibility.
Okay.
She didn't, but
We have the amended one, we have the 550,000, we have one for the contract Cerro Nero's bypass, but I do have a blank one.
I would suggest we use a blank, and I told them to put blanks in just in case
Yep.
we ever got there, we didn't have them, that we could at least move forward.
So, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract for
I think we should.
66,338
Do
for.
you have any, excuse me, Sandy, one second. Mac, do you have any?
Does
Comments?
anybody have a discussion with, if it did come to fruition, what the order of magnitude would be to do it? Based on today's prices?
I don't want to talk money, and I will talk money, but I don't want to, what I'm told, the order of magnitude would be less than what we're talking about going down the highway. So no matter, if we go down the highway to get to the Cape Cod Canal, which we're already planning on, if we went down the railroad tracks, which we talked about, this would come in less than those two. And I just don't want to say a number because it hasn't been made public, but let me just say it'll be less. And maybe when I catch you in a minute or so outside, I can give you a number. But that number, just to be frank, it's going to be public very soon. The Buzzards Bay Coalition has these numbers, and they've run a lot of numbers, and they're going to make them public. I just don't think it's my place to make them public tonight. But it will be less.
That's fine.
Well, I don't mind expending the money with the possibility it might be less. I'm not thrilled with it, but
Hey, Sandy, back to you.
I make a motion that we approve the contract for Ken Felder
Kleinfelder?
for the WPCF outfall force main feasibility and routing analysis proposal for $66,338 to be funded from the contractor's budget.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
300. Okay. Now, if you're able to, Guy,
Let's see, let me gather all my paperwork
would
from
you
my
like to
report. No, I'm just
continue
kidding.
on with your report?
I'm gonna try to make this short and sweet.
Excuse me?
I'm gonna try to do my
Thank
very
you.
best to
Was
get
that, what
through
did you
this.
say?
And
Everybody hear what he said?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna
Put
repeat
that
it.
in the
but,
minutes.
There's a lot to say, but I'm gonna say it very briefly. I know that the GHD contract for Narrows Bypass, we won the grant. That contract needs to be executed. I think you have the paperwork for that.
Yes, I do.
So that needs to be executed. That's for the GHD to actually do, the design's been done, but now it's about getting it built. And we won the grant through CZM to put this bypass in, which is going to allow us to take that station offline and make some major repairs. As some of you know, that we had, at our local restaurant, we had a sewer break in their system. The reason that we couldn't stop the flow is because we had a valve that was inoperable. Now we'll go even one step further. I have no valves at the pump station to shut off to stop that flow. So the bypass is going to allow us to start addressing these issues. And so the bypass is critical. We got the grant. And so that contract's for GHD, and I'd like to make sure we get that done. You have the paperwork for that. So I can cross that off my list. The meeting at Pinehurst this Saturday is going to be something special. Last night, we put out a reverse 911 to Pinehurst to let them know we have a meeting. I think the meeting is going to probably take place on the town property next to their association on the outside. They informed me that the only people who will be allowed in the clubhouse were those that paid dues. If you didn't pay dues, you're not allowed into the meeting, nor did they feel they're responsible to tell the people in the neighborhood, unless they were card-carrying, dues-paying members. That was brought to my attention. It's kind of shocking to me. It's like not voting, and if you don't vote, you don't get representation. That's how I looked at it, but nonetheless, so I'm gonna kind of wing it. We have a piece of land next door that's town property that we can use if we had to. I think they'd probably let me use some of their outside, so we'll figure it out. I suggest we have another meeting only because we never talked about the Swiss Beach portion. There's a couple streets there that are gonna be impacted, and we need to get the memo out to them too. So I think we should coordinate another meeting, have it at a venue. And I want to, let me go back a step. We went to that association because we felt it'd be convenient for everybody in that neighborhood. If I had known that it was going to be for a select few, I wouldn't even gone to the neighborhood. We'd go to the town hall, parking lot, or something, because it would have been for everybody. But nonetheless, I think we may need to revisit that depending on how we make out Saturday. Just so I want to throw that out there. So we'll take it day by day and see what happens. And Saturday we'll have a definitive answer. We had some backflow. We were cleaning the lines in Pinehurst. We had 4 houses where the pressure, they pressurized the system to clean the lines, and it came out to, I think 3 or 4 homes through their toilets. They brought in all the cleaning people in. They've cleaned everything. They replaced towels, bathrobes, whatever they had to replace. They've done all that. So they rectified the problem. And I asked them to be a little more conscientious because they have big equipment, to just depressurize a little bit to clean the lines, and they said they would. The plant skater's been down for 8 days. We've got it rebooted and up and running today. We've been unable to control anything. There was a lightning strike. It took out the battery backup. It took out CPP1, CPP2. It's going to be about $115,000 to repair. We're up and running now. We did a reboot, and we're running. We still have to start replacing some components. I've got the estimate. I'm filing an insurance claim, and I'll let you know how that goes. Without the skater, and I'll say it again, without the skater, that plant doesn't run. We had an equalization pump shut off last night. Nothing was pumped out of the equalization basin. We're already high. It was coming in this morning with breath holding and all the other stuff, because without the pumps working, flow goes there, it could be a very dangerous situation. So they booted up, we're up and running, we're monitoring it, but we've got to get some repairs done, so I'll let you know as we go along in that. I talked about the phosphorus problem. It's crazy. So everything, the rehab, I talked. So my final thing, and I'll rush through this, and it's really pretty straight. Woodward and Cove, I met with Woodland Cove Wednesday. They're moving forward. They expect to have state approval in December for phase 1. Phase 1 is going to be the dismantling of the motel, the construction of 2 buildings and a recreation center, and the construction of the egress onto Red Brook Road. I asked about the flow, because when they had the whole project, there was 2 and 3 bedrooms, and I wanted to see if, when they did the first phase, were they going to shove all 3 bedrooms in there? They said they'd get back to me. That flow is estimated to be about 14,000 gallons per day just for those 2 buildings. I talked about the building that they're putting for the recreation. They plan on putting a kitchen. I said, well, that changes things. He said, well, not really a kitchen. I said, well, what are you putting it? Well, we're going to put a stove and a sink and a refrigerator and a dishwasher. I says, okay, so
Sounds
what
like
part
a
of
kitchen to me.
kitchen that, we get a little, I need to know that, because that speaks to how we're going to deal with it. So they're going to get back to me on those facts. They're applying for phase 2 in January. So phase 1, they'll get their answer in December. They have to close the deal by April, and construction will start shortly thereafter on phase 1, which is the 2 buildings, the rec and the roadway, plus expanding the 8-inch pipe to the sewer. They're applying for phase 2 in January, and they believe they'll get that pretty quick. And they're hoping to have that by summer, and then they'll do the same thing. They should have that started probably by next fall. Phase 3, they haven't applied for yet, and they really weren't. They said that's probably a couple years out, and that's where we are. They're going to get back to me with all the questions that I've asked about flow, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is new to me. There's also a commercial piece there, which the owners separated from the 40B. and they're asking to develop the commercial. I said, well, let me say this to you. No one's ever brought that to the sewer commission to even get permission to connect the commercial. They want to do that too. I said, that's a whole new ballgame. So I said, we'll talk about the 40B. I don't want to talk about the commercial. And before anybody can say anything, that has to be presented to the town, the sewer commission, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not a 40B, it's just a commercial strip that they cut out of the project.
I thought that had been approved, because I remember it on all the plans.
I don't know. But I know for one thing, it hasn't been approved for sewer.
Maybe not sewer, but I thought it had come before planning.
I don't know.
Never told us.
So anyways, that's where they are with that, and I said I could
That's
not
like-
allow that to happen until, because I had to go run by the sewer commissioners before it could even happen. And with the present condition of flows, I told them, I don't think that's gonna be possible. I also mentioned to them that if they don't use the flow, there's a new policy that says if you do not use it within a year, you have to come back and reapply. And I told them I'd investigate with the sewer commissioners if that applied in this case. We also talked about
I would say yes.
we also talked about costs, and we gave them a cost for, I&I fee, the whole 9 yards, and they want to do that in phases also. And so that's reasonable. For 14,000, you pay $5 a gallon for the 14. That's reasonable. Instead of paying the rest, I can understand, because that rest may or may not happen. So those are the basic things we talked about. And they also asked me if it would be a commercial development or residential. And I said, I believe it'll be commercial because of the magnitude of it, but I would check with the sewer commissioners. When I hear residential, I'm thinking of single-family homes within a community, maybe a duplex, but, a great development like this, I have a hard time thinking of it as, even though people live there, I have a hard time thinking of it as a residential project because of for us, the grease, the rags, et cetera, it just puts it in a different level. But I told them I'd run that by the commissioners also and see if they wanted it to be residential, because that just talks about fees. Either it's a commercial fee or residential fee, and the monitoring, et cetera. So that's my meeting with Woodland Cove.
Well, I would say it's a commercial, but. Yeah, any questions, comments? Yes, Sandy?
Not at this time.
Sandy's got some. She's trying to figure out what they are, though.
I think we probably should talk about Settlers Glen.
Who?
We
Okay.
were on that 40B off of Red Brook. It's
Right.
going to be 10 duplexes, 20 total, 50.
That came in front of us. We tabled it.
50.
That came in front of us.
No, we had a conference call today. I wanted.
I
the
understand,
board-
but-
I wanted the
Okay, that-
commissions to know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That they're talking about 50 bedrooms and just, they're saying they have town water and town sewer, and I don't believe I ever heard that we committed to their hookup.
We tabled it. It came in front of us. It was Mr. Bladgton and Mr. Grady sat here, and at that point, we tabled it
Right.
because we had no concept of
It was
flow.
called
So.
the Red Brook 40B. Now it has a name.
That was the name. So we tabled it. I don't really believe the name's important, not that I'm degrading the name, but we talked about the concept of that project.
Yep.
And we tabled it, and I think, and so it stays tabled until it comes back up at us again. That's just me, my recommendation.
That's fine.
I don't think because there's nothing we can do with it at this point in time, nothing. I got a phone call from Mrs. Cheryl Fiandaca. Mrs. Cheryl Fiandaca is an investigative news reporter for Channel 7, I believe, or maybe 6, but she's one of them. And she got a call from the residents of Indian Mound Beach, specifically talking about the Cohasset Street manhole that stinks, and that's the manhole rehabbed of the flow coming from Bourne.
We worked on that.
We did, we rehabbed it.
3 of them, right in a row.
We did. I think there was more than that. But the residents said that they were told the road's going to collapse because they were deteriorating, but we addressed it. So the real issue is the neighborhood is saying that no one's doing anything to mitigate the odors. What I said to Ms. Fiandaca is that manhole takes the flow from the town of Bourne's Hideaway Village development. That we have a corrosion report that talks about the high H2S that comes into that line. We've asked Bourne on numerous occasions to add some type of neutralizer or an oxidizer to their line, to their pump station, to neutralize the H2S coming to us.
So it's coming in as acid.
It's coming in as pretty high, up 100, 200, 300 parts per million of hydrogen sulfide, and it converts into
That is
hydrochloric
very
acid.
corrosive.
It's corrosive. You can see what happened to the manholes.
And it smells.
And it smells, and so they're tired of living with it, especially the lady that's right on the manhole. She's tired, and I don't blame her.
She was out there talking to us when you were working on it a couple years ago.
I think that, for me, what bothered me is she said we weren't doing anything, and that's really not the case. Wareham's been very proactive on that. We've added some odor neutralizer, but because it comes in so high, there's nothing we can do. Short of taking and drilling in a pipe into the manhole, take it to the side of the road and put some odor control, suck the air out and treat the odor, which is quite costly, and the maintenance is quite costly. I think it's easier if one just add some type of oxidizer to their pump station, regulate it, and start dosing it, and have an engineer look at the moles for moles, how much sulfide, how much moles for oxidizer, what it's gonna take, what their flow rate is, and set a station up and
Correct it
take
at
care
the
of it.
source.
Absolutely.
Don't give us
Absolutely.
that product.
That's my feeling. I've mentioned this to Bourne. They have a new director, Matt. I've talked to him once. I've been trying to get a hold of him. I talked to their worker, the one sewer worker, and he's aware and he knows.
Is
And
this something we should talk to Mr. Potter about?
well, Jim
think so.
Jim can talk to Mr.
The
Potter and mention
selectmen
it.
are the sewer commissioners in Bourne.
Yes, because I know that Mrs. Fiandaca is going to talk to him because I told him that she should talk to Bourne. Right. So that's
So
That's my-
another one for your list, Jimmy.
my conversation with Mrs. Fiandaca. The article, are we rewriting it, or is it being rewritten by town council and the
Town
town?
council and town administrator.
So we're not gonna touch it, because I put it.
It's not us.
Okay.
It's out of us and bond and
Okay,
the
no, that's fine.
financial
I just
component.
didn't want it to get lost. I didn't want town meetings to, so that's good. So I'll forget it. Russ actually put something together, which is, I asked him to, and he was more than willing to, so we're good. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to have it lost someplace. But that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Add to questions, comments? Okay. Now we're into our unfinished business still ones. Our sump pumps are still,
No, we have a contract.
GHD bypass.
oh,
The
okay, I'm sorry, yeah,
Contract for
that's
the
right.
Narrows bypass.
You mentioned it, we've got that.
The cost is $57,628. Did I get that right?
You did.
There were so many pages and so many
Well, I know, and
appendices
to tell you, Jim asked me to, and I think we talked about it before, so he talked about in the head of a contract, it should summarize, he wants to say who it is, who's working with the town, what it is, what's it for, and how much does it cost?
Well, I just added the dollar amount to the contract that we're about to sign.
Yes, so you knew, but I will start adding that, so at least you'll know, and then you can dig into the document to get the hard answers that you want.
Just quick clarification on that contract, it's the 57,000 and change.
$57,628 in no cents.
The overall project was about $300,000,
Yes.
but we got a 75% grant for that. So this is the engineering component. We have to do one small modification to the design, and then our services during the bidding and construction phase services. And then at a later date, once this is bid, the contractors are gonna bid, and hopefully the bids come in under 243,000 to fit within the grant amount. So at some point in a few months, we'll be coming back with a contractor's bid for the 200 and, whatever it is, under the 243, and that will be for the construction. So it was mentioned earlier that GHD was gonna build, it's for the final design and the engineering, so services related to construction.
Well, just so they're gonna build it, so if it doesn't work, we're coming after GHD.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we're coming after, so if you look on the back, it breaks it down, the actual expenses that make up the 57,628.
Yep.
It just breaks it right down, so that's where it is, but, yeah, they did the last one, GHD did the last two, and we've had great success. We tried them, they work great, so we have to continue on with them.
I make a motion, we accept the contract for GHD for the Narrows bypass for amount $57,628.
The contract for I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just
No,
gonna say for
the
a
contract for the grant's been signed by the town administrator. Just want you to, so I gotta pick that up Monday, so we're all set there too. I apologize. I'm
It's
sorry,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Second,
Second now.
all in favor?
Aye.
300.
Okay.
Now, sump pumps. They're still
They're
pumping
still
along
sumping.
well?
They're still sumping. They're
They're
something good.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Although it's been dry, Mr. Chairman, so we kind of give them a break. There are some that never stop sumping, but the majority of them, they've taken a break, so
Thank
hopefully
God.
they work when we get wet weather again.
Stone Path. They've done nothing.
We're waiting, we sent them, what we're looking for, and we got a good idea, we sent them application for industrial permit, because they're an industry, they're making something.
Right.
Have yet to get it back to us.
Okay. Contact them. All right. Just a second.
At the last selectmen's meeting, there was some discussion about how we stop the sump pumps. Did that ever get back to you, Mr. Chair?
No,
Okay.
no, ma'am.
I think that was going to be done by Mr. Tropiano, was take the lead on that.
That's right, you're right.
He's taking the lead on that. Were
I
you at
think
that
we
meeting?
need, we need to put that in the minutes to make
He-
sure it's covered.
Yeah, he said he'll take the lead, and he would.
I think that was done at the last meeting when he
Yes.
was,
It was, and he's got a valid point in as much as the town selectmen have authority that we don't.
That's correct.
They have authority, and
Yep.
so he said he'd take the lead on that, and
Yep, so he's,
kudos for stepping up.
it's in his wheelhouse.
yeah, it
Has the
was,
Stone Path had any discussion about expansion?
No, but so to us, absolutely not.
Okay.
To the town, for sure. But I wasn't, but there's an article on the town meeting floor last spring that spoke to them, I believe. But they're gonna increase the size of service, and I don't know what it is.
yeah, they're allowed outside service.
Yeah, they're gonna, so, outside service means
Liquor
more
and
people,
meals.
there's more liquor, there's more spilt liquor. Every time you pour beer, you don't get every drop, and the more beer you pour, the more that comes down to the sewer. We never addressed that. We talked about the byproduct of barley. Beer joints or restaurants, we make them take it through a grease trap. Here, it's just, it is what it is, but, yeah. They have not talked about expanding their process. They got two more expansions to go.
That's what I
And
was
we told them the last one, there'll be no expansions, and so I don't know that,
All right.
so
Yeah,
there's
check
no room. Matter of fact, we talked in the very beginning, they got the reports that said that Kendrick pump station was marginal at best at build-out of the trailer park. The trailer park has a long ways to go. So when they get to build out the trailer park, we're done. And so we told them that, that's why we were emphatic about an impact study, because they were running to those numbers. And so they are not going to expand there. They're not going to put they're not, because that system is at capacity.
Now, at the Kendrick Pump Station, if I remember correctly, we already had a problem out there with the pumps and had to replace a pump or
I
two
replaced 2 pumps
pumps, right?
and a sewer line.
And then the sewer line was just recently, right? Yeah, that's the one that we just did.
I'm not blaming them.
No, I
but I'm just
understand that,
saying
but
we-
but we've got an issue with that particular pump station
That station.
anyhow. So,
Absolutely. That station's at capacity.
yeah. Any more homes connected? Did Bob, get you any, no?
We got another one connecting. We just did a permit today, so that'll go online.
Any idea what our number of unconnected is at the present time?
No, it's more than we had.
Unconnected?
No, we got more connected than we had.
That's what I mean, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, we got more than we had.
Could you
Connected.
update that report?
Yeah, that's- it's
You knew
a
that
lot.
was coming, didn't you?
Yes, I did. That's why I said we got more than we had. Yes, well, I'll have them update you.
curious.
It's been, we've been ticking off once.
We've been pretty steady. We have been, we really have. Yes. I don't know where the numbers are, but we've been, Rose Point, we've done a few. Parkwood Beach area, done a few. So there are people coming forward and tying
Well, I
in.
mean, when you look at it, Sandy, since this board was formed, we kind of stayed constant with the same number of unconnected
Yeah.
things until we got on the,
Until we said, send out the
Now
letters.
it's been working.
Send out the letters. Send out the letters.
been working, so at least something's,
Progress, it's some serious progress.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but at least it's going in a direction.
Well, you find as homes are sold,
It's required.
yes, so that's helping. With the
It
market
is.
the way it is right now, people are selling at good prices, and
Yes, that's very true.
that's
We grab them, because when the lawyers call us, we tell them, oh, yeah, that's not connected, it needs to be connected.
And from Conservation Commission, it's amazing how many cesspools are being, saying goodbye to as people sell, and they have to put in new Title V. So fewer cesspools along the water's edge is always a good thing.
Big time.
Are they going straight into the water now instead of the cesspool?
No, they're trying to find that new nitrogen-reducing Title Vs underneath their driveways, et cetera, because the lots are so small.
Put them on the second floor.
Yep, raise them high because it's too wet.
Yeah.
I meant to call David Brissette today, I think he's not in tomorrow, but I'd like to meet with him specific, or even you, with him, out to Smith's project. They were digging down for the manhole, and they hit a bunch of asphalt in the marsh. And we have no concept. They said, well, we can jackhammer. I said, wait a minute, there shouldn't be asphalt in the marsh. So I'd like to at least let conservation see it, know it's there, because we gotta jackhammer it up. And I don't know what asphalt's doing in the marsh.
On that point, Mr. Bichette has requested a meeting regarding the project on C Street prior to the notice of intent being filed. So he has some idea on how we're going to handle the activity in Mira Cove.
Have them come to the meeting.
I didn't think we were gonna file notice of intent. I thought we were gonna, we walked with him a couple of times, but yes, I think he should come down, we should walk it, and we'll tell him everything. And that's why I wanted he can talk to the contractor, and we're very
Yes, well-
cognizant of what's gotta be done there, and, mats, the
Mats
whole
and all
nine
that
yards.
other
Absolutely,
stuff.
we're very cognizant of that,
I
but
told
we should solidify that.
I told Dave about the meeting on Saturday, but I said it's really just to discuss with the homeowners down there, and I didn't think it would be worth his while to come and,
The contractor's gonna
Listen.
be there.
but the questions that will be coming from conservation are not the questions the homeowners will be asking, so I think we need our own, conservation needs their own meeting with your contractor.
Well, we were kinda hoping you'd do it when the people are there too, because you go easy on us. That's what was the plan. We figured if we had all the people around there, you couldn't be so vicious. That was our plan. I'm just telling you, that's what we're thinking.
Anything to keep Sandy
I like
quiet, right?
that. I like
Yeah.
that plan.
That was our plan. But yes, we should meet, I know, I want to see the specific, the asphalt, and we can talk about everything, we can walk everything, but I want to see that, because I don't want it to be stated as we start digging this, we bring this asphalt to the surface, that's something that we did.
At what road might have been there at one time?
It's
so-
gonna be in the center of the marsh off of Almeda. It's so, when you go Almeda, you walk to the marsh, in the center of the marsh, and we got a manhole, we go this way, we dig up the manhole, we hit this major blockage of asphalt. So it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I don't
Well,
know, maybe
nothing-
washed up there during
That could
the
be.
hurricanes.
It could be. But we got to jackhammer through it,
So
so I want you to be aware of it.
contact him Tuesday.
Okay, because I want to, because I told the contractor, don't jackhammer it, dig it, do anything until conservation sees it.
Yeah.
Okay, EDU rates, we're still working on them, but at least we're making a little progress. We've got some information from the water department, but
Do you want to
processing that.
talk about what happened at the selectmen's meeting regarding EDU rates and usage?
Go right ahead, because I wasn't at it. What,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the way to say it. It was suggested at the selectmen's meeting, Mr. Patrick said he talked to Jimmy, and he's speaking about having the selectmen take over the project for usage rates. Is that a good way to put it? Usage? Water usage rates, and that they have the power, or they could better deal with the two water districts, et cetera. And so I think this should be a discussion when we bring in Mr. Trapiano, and have him talk to us as to what that commitment, or sorry, that discussion was that he had with the selectmen.
my discussion with him was that they would assist us in getting
That was not the impression I got.
information we needed from the water department, so we could continue to pursue
And
an EDU rate that's,
Mr. Sullivan did say that we got data from Wareham.
And onset.
Well, at that time, Mr. Sullivan didn't mention onset,
Yes,
he
we have
mentioned,
onset.
at that
We have
time, we didn't
Wareham.
have, we do now.
but Patrick said we had nothing, so this was,
No, we have information.
I just,
I think he may have misspoken a little.
but it was, well, where'd that come from? I don't remember this group here saying, okay, selectmen, go do that work. I mean, I wouldn't mind Patrick doing it for us or with us in some case, but not the whole Board of Selectmen.
No, I don't
We
want,
don't need the whole board.
Then
If
they
we
don't-
want, if Patrick feels he's got
they don't need the
the clout,
aggravation
so to speak,
associated.
then he can help us.
Yep.
But I honestly don't want,
I think he may have misspoken a little.
okay.
Well, somewhere along the line, they're going to have to do an IMA, and that's where the selectmen will come in, because they're the only ones that can
Yes,
enter.
down,
the
The
yes,
IMA is
down
a
that,
different-
yes.
Yeah, that's a whole different, that's the
Whole
only
different
thing, the
animal.
time they'll get totally involved. I'll say it again, I believe the EDUs should just be modified and be done with it, but that's not the story.
I'm sorry.
The EDUs as they exist should be modified, brought up to the 21st century and recalculated, and I think that's a quicker fix, and we can add some equitable to the people that are complaining without, and then if you want to work on the water side, that's fine, I'm not saying it shouldn't, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. And once we figure it out, the implementation is going to be a son of a gun. When CDM talked about implementation of the water, they talked about having millions of dollars in stockpiled to do the implementation. So I just think the reality is to get people to a place quicker, because they do want to see some fairness, redoing as an example, a lady told me she won't build a laundromat because it's 1.5 EDUs per machine. That's $900. Well, machines today don't use the 65, 70 gallons they did back in the 90s. So that needs to be looked at and evaluated today, and we can take a basic flow and figure out, so, well, yeah, it's not quite an EDU and a half, maybe 3/4 an EDU, but an EDU and a half is a little much. Then we can do bedrooms, so like we have a problem with some, maybe an EDU is a base home, and then an EDU and a half for a duplex, EDU and 3/4 for three family, whatever, 3 bedrooms, whatever. But there's ways to do it, to make it equitable and get something done.
And
That's
some
all.
of our repair shops, muffler, whatever it is, we say that, yes, there's a lot of chemicals, but they don't wash their hands anymore because they're all wearing gloves. So you don't have that type of usage coming down the drain as everybody washed that soapy stuff off their hands when everybody's wearing gloves. I mean, there has to be some,
The problem with service stations is, first of all, they're supposed to have traps.
well,
They're
I'm,
supposed to have traps that grab the oil-water separators.
Yep.
And they abandoned them. And the oil separator is what grabs all that nonsense before it comes to us. If you have a oil separator, yes, I think there should be some more reasonability thought about it, and that's part of the process of, okay, what's real in the EDUs? And that's part of the process.
Yep.
It really is.
one more.
We'll
Is
sit-
there anything else? Yes, there was one more thing. You yawned, and I saw
No,
that.
that wasn't the yawn yet.
We'll think of something on the way out of here.
At the last meeting, you asked us to think about how we might help businesses that were shut down
Right.
for COVID. And I haven't given that some thought. Would you rather wait for another meeting since it's 8 o'clock already?
Yeah, probably, because I would like to get at least one more of us here for that discussion too. Either Don or Peter.
See, all my notes.
addition.
I did it.
I understand. I like it. Thank you. All right, would you make a note to put that on the next agenda? Make that announcement over your thing so it goes on the tape, so she
Oh,
pick it up for the next
Yes.
agenda?
on the
please?
next agenda, will you please make a comment to talk about business relief for COVID? EDU business relief, whatever you want to call it. How we can help the businesses with their EDU rates when they weren't able to be open. Something like that. COVID adjustment, I guess, my
Yeah,
good.
good. The COVID adjustment. Okay, our next meeting date is the 22nd of October, in preparation for Halloween. Do we come in costume for that? We're already in
I
costume.
don't know.
We're already in costume.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Oh.
true.
We have masks. We're good. We have our
Alan
masks.
just ordered a mask.
I mean,
I hope
I'll have
it's
to
a
wait to
big
see
one
it.
that covers a lot of him.
Wait to see it.
Think about Walking Dead.
One-
Wait to see it. Oh, man.
But that's kind of normal.
1022, in room 320,
Yes. Could I have a,
I make a motion, we adjourn, and it's 8.
thank you, you're filling in for Donna, thank
I'll
you.
second that.
All in favor, yes.
Yes,
We're home
aye.
free. Okay, sign in to the Nielsen's, let us know how great it is.